Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian, and I'm so honored to have with us today Steve Nygren. He's the founder and CEO of Serenbe. Welcome, Steve, to the Impact Podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward to the conversation.
You know, Steve, before we get going and having a longer conversation about Serenbe and about your brand new book here, which is called Start in Your Own Backyard. I've reviewed this book. I love it. We're going to talk about the book. I want you to share a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and how did you get on this fascinating and impactful journey that you're on?
You never know where the path takes you. I grew up on a generational farm in Boulder County, Colorado. My ancestors helped settle the Front Range in the 1860s. Two branches from are Swedish. My granddads are 100% Swedish. And so I grew up connected to the land on the edge of, Denver and Boulder, but they're a very rural area. When I was in first and second grade, I walked to the schoolhouse that my great granddad had helped build, which was, a mile from our house facing the Rockies. And so that is just the life I knew, but I could hardly wait to get away from it. And so, I went to the University of Colorado to become an architect. Wow. And on that journey, a part-time job seduced me into the hospitality industry. And I decided, gosh, that was a lot more fun. I didn't have to work so hard as these poor architectural students that were burning the light all night. And so I started working part-time for Stouffer's Food Corporation and ended up into their management team. Everyone in the Northeast will remember Stouffer's when it had restaurants and hotels before it was just known as frozen foods.
That's right.
And I was then part of their hotel opening team. Opened the hotel in St. Louis and then Atlanta. And I'd fallen in love with Atlanta. And so this was, I moved here in 1969 and we opened that hotel in 1972. And I knew that I was going to be moved on to the next hotel location and I wanted to stay in Atlanta. So I stepped off that corporate treadmill and opened my first restaurant called The Pleasant Peasant. And so that was in February of 1973. And it was in Midtown Atlanta, which was an area that had been totally abandoned because the hippies had moved in the 60s. And when they left in about 1970, it was just empty storefronts in what was, that 1900s edge community right on the edge of downtown, a mile from downtown Atlanta. Right. And so there was a lot of empty buildings. And so I could certainly afford the rent. And so I was in a building that had built in 1900 and served as a Vic's delicatessen for 50 years.
Wow.
But in the previous 5 years before I leased it, it had been 5 restaurants in 5 years. So you can imagine the area, it was just awful. But it had the bones of this wonderful 1900s restaurant that we restored. And we opened a restaurant with fresh food, if you can imagine, in a casual atmosphere without reservations. Now, while this we see today, this was very, very new in the early 70s when you had what we call the Fern bars, TGI Fridays and all the Fern bars were the hot things. But local food in a casual atmosphere with white linen and waiters and all the trappings, but much more casual. And we were an instant success. And proceeded later to buy that building. Other restaurants led an effort to relook at the zoning in Midtown Atlanta, and that's now another place that's just one of the most vital square miles in America. But we grew that company to 36 restaurants in 8 states. Wow. And we were known, in those early years, I was too naive to need a feasibility study because I'd go into these transitional areas that it was obvious to me that things were going to take off, but no one else, as banks certainly wouldn't fund them, but developers or I started buying property in these depressed areas. And that built this incredible company. Stanley Marcus of Neiman Marcus negotiated my first lease in Washington, D.C. to be next to a Neiman's. And when the Development Authority wanted to clean up Pennsylvania Avenue between the White House and the Capitol, they attracted 5 restaurant companies, basically paid all of our way. And we were one of those 5 to help transition that section of Pennsylvania Avenue. In those days, you didn't dare walk after dark in that area.
That's right.
So we have really had a fun time. And I was having a fun time until I wasn't.
Makes sense.
And along that journey, when our children were small, we bought a historic farm on the edge of Atlanta in 1991. Our kids were 3, 5, and 7. And it was one of those heart decisions. We simply were taking a drive to look at a historic farm that was for sale. And I called to see if they had farm animals and if they'd mind if I pulled in to show my kids farm animals. And of course, anyone with something for sale says, come on. We arrived, they had the Shetland pony saddled, and I bought the farm.
They were good marketers. They knew what they were doing.
Oh, man, it's amazing, And I didn't know why we were doing it, but gee, all this open land this close to Atlanta, it seemed like a good real estate play. And besides, I was making my 3 daughters delighted. And so, Dad will do anything for that.
You're the hero of the family. You were the hero.
And we rented the historic house out, and my wife fixed the shack in the back in case we ever wanted to spend the night. I imagine we'd come down a couple Saturday afternoons a month. Yeah. But lo and behold, it's where the family wanted to come all the time. And we had a great house in Ansley Park, which anyone who knows Atlanta knows this is the real in-town neighborhood. You could walk to Symphony Hall and the High Museum and all the restaurants on Peachtree, or go the other way to the Botanical Gardens at Piedmont Park. We were never leaving. And everybody, and we had the pool, all these things. Wow. The kids wanted to leave all those things money could buy to connect with nature. And doing that for 3 years was a value shift. And so in 94, I sold my company. We sold that big house, and we started restoring the old farmhouse, and moved in there in 94. And that's where we raised the kids.
And is that today, was that the beginning of Serenbe?
Well, that's we named, my wife named the farm Serenbe. But it was 6 years later, so 10 years really after we bought the property, that we became concerned about urban sprawl. This was the last affordable and open land in metro Atlanta. I mean, we're 32 miles from downtown Atlanta and 25 from the airport. So it was what you would say the wrong side of the tracks. All of Atlanta development was going north, and this is in the southwestern corridor with no real roads to it. So it was kind of a forgotten quadrant. Like if you were looking at metro Atlanta and the interstate highways, this would be between the 7 and 8 on a clock. And so it's a quadrant of 40,000 acres that had just remained rural and rural zoning. but developers were starting to come and put contracts. And of course, I started buying more land, and I realized I couldn't keep doing that. And so sat back and said, okay, what are the issues? And of course, contacted all the preservation groups. Well, they were busy deploying their money in front of the bulldozers up north. That, none of them saw the immediate threat because the immediate threat wasn't here yet, but it was on our way.
Right.
And so I sat back and tried to understand why we couldn't link development entitlement with land preservation. And my model was the countryside of England. We had a dear friend who lived over there in this little village between southwest of London called Selborne. And so we took the kids about every year during my retirement. So I learned a lot about their land laws, their common paths. Each little hamlet had a pub, a grocery, a community life.
Right.
And why can't we do this in America? And of course, all the professionals thought I was nuts. I was a naive restaurant guy. But the universities understood what I was talking about. And so working with Rocky Mountain Institute came in along with Ray Anderson, one of the great environmentalists. And they assembled, and Ray had been a friend of mine for years. And so they assembled 23 thought leaders in September of 23 and started looking at all these issues. And of course, I was disappointed because there was no one that was my model, my mentor, someone I could hire. They were all experts in all these silos about, we had some real serious issues. And so that frustration then, Ray sent me around the country, and 6 months later, I said, there's got to be somebody doing this. And he said, no, that's why you have to. And so all those people were wonderful resources, never sent me a bill, and connected me with Phil Tabb, who did his doctorate on the English village system, and had just accepted the position of head of architecture at Texas A&M. So the architecture department at Texas A&M, the legal and land use at the University of Georgia, and the architecture and engineering and land planning at Georgia Tech were my three academic teams that really helped move this forward. And we organized conversations with the 500 landowners that owned this 40,000 acres. And through a 2-year process that was neighborhood coffees leading to public meetings, we changed one of the largest zoning overlays in Metro Atlanta's history in 2002, which linked development with preservation. And so it moves all development to 30% of the land, and the 70% has to remain in an agricultural zoning for farms, pastures, equestrian, recreation, whatever would be titled. But it moves all the density then to these clustered walkable villages, which today we understand, 25 years ago, this was nuts, but this is what you see all over England.
That's right.
And so why couldn't we do that here? And so then once we got all of the zoning overlays in place, we brought transfer development rights in for the state of Georgia. The South didn't have that. And once the tools were in place, then we broke ground on Serenbe in 2004. And first people started moving in 2005. Now, we were so different. The real estate community, I tried to get investors. I tried borrowing money. Everybody thought I was nuts, but thank goodness I had bought property in Midtown Atlanta in the 70s. And then when that was rezoned as a walkable community in the 80s, all that land had appreciated, which allowed me to leverage or sell it to really
finance your dream, your new dream.
Serenbe and developed it as a model, because we didn't do it. People had to walk it and see it. And now, 28 years later, we've had people, as I just ran into someone, and their son was born here and now is headed off to college. Several of these here, and we have people who moved here. They're aging into their 90s. We are a real model that a lot of these issues, this health crisis we have in America, it comes back to our built environment and the lifestyles that we have developed for people to live in, or to exist in, is better. We've zoned the vitality out of where we live. And it seems so common sense, but there are no good models. And so this is why literally you walk on the streets and you start it feels familiar and unusual at the same time.
What is when did you go from being seen as a wonderful, successful restaurateur businessman with a crazy big idea to, wait a second, he's on to something really big. This is going to be a success. When did that cross over?
Well, I'm trying to figure out when that is going to happen. I think we're still on that journey.
Oh, well, I've read, it would be too many to recite, but including the MLK Jr. Beloved Community Environmental Justice Award and the Global Wellness Institute's Leader Innovation Award and South Face's Argonne Award. You've won more awards than I have fingers on my hand. And so has Serenbe won its own awards. So I think that recognition has come. But when did it really accelerate to sort of escape velocity, where you knew you were onto something that was really going to be able to scale up and take on a life of its own?
Well, it continues. I mean, we have certainly gotten awards, and awards for people that are really understanding, whether it's environmental issues, health issues, inclusion, just those groups you named. And we got the awards because we're so unique.
Yeah.
Now, what I have not gotten is a major investor or loan that help propel this in meaningful ways. And so this is why I say, the traditional systems that propel and advance these things still has not recognized me. They still see me as a little bit of an environmental hospitality guy. Now, in the housing area, people can now get a loan. We can build any price home here that's imaginable,
Right.
because we're our own comp, if you will.
Got it.
But we have several things on the drawing boards: hotels, more office buildings. Right now the mixed use buildings that are here. We have some great ones, and offices and medical. I mean, we've got everything here. We basically have built that ourselves. The school on campus, a huge, set up as a nonprofit. That money was all raised within the community. So there's a lot of really things exciting that are happening, but it's still small enough that we're not seen as a major developer yet. We're still a niche developer.
How did your wife come up with the name Serenbe?
We were on a drive and thinking about naming it, and we were in the rural country roads of Georgia, and it suddenly came to her that when we slowed down to simply be, we found the serenity we were looking for.
There you go, serenity and being. I love it. I love it. How would you describe? I'm on an elevator with you. You're going to the 50th floor. I'm going to the 40th, and we introduce ourselves to each other. And you tell me about Serenbe. In that 60-second period, how would you describe Serenbe to the uninitiated?
It is a community that preserves a major part of nature, but we're on the edge of a major city. And the way we have developed it, by connecting people to one another and to nature, you can literally feel the joy. You see the free-range kids and uncaged elders everywhere, and you realize how that has disappeared from where we live today. And so we're a demonstration of what joy can feel like by just being on the street.
I love it. How many people, give or take, how many people are currently residing?
We have about 1,400.
Wow.
With people moving in every week. We're building and expanding houses, so this is expanding. And it's what I call global citizens, because we have the airport just down the road. So while we feel remote, we're really a very urban feel when you're here on the streets. We have incredible line of restaurants. People drive in from all over for the restaurants. The school kids are walking to school. 300 full-time kids living here, and not one reported sign of asthma is just one statistic on our health. That's statistically impossible in the United States today, and several reasons that we've been able to do that. Art galleries, health, we have from the traditional family practice and pediatricians and dentists, all the way to, alternative Chinese medicine. And we have the nation's first non-chemical pharmacy, alchemy. So we are now attracting leaders that want to make a difference and have dreams for businesses that could. We are now that platform that they can come to. And so we have over 30 what you would call mom and pop niche businesses that have all located here that make the lifestyle here this wonderful village.
That's so wonderful. So you're really attracting a whole new generation of pioneers.
That's correct.
That's wonderful. There's a word. It's right now over your what would be my left shoulder, but it's your right shoulder. But when I was reading up on Serenbe, it's a word I wasn't familiar with. Biophilic.
That's right.
Talk to me about what does a biophilic wellness community mean?
Well, as we started, as I mentioned, everyone thought we were completely nuts.
Right.
And so we just put my head down. I stopped going to conferences or meetings because everyone saw me as this, kook.
Right.
And then in the midst of the recession, a lot of the analysts started studying the first people to walk out, and it was walkable and environmental communities were the first to walk out of the recession back in 2009 and 10.
Okay.
And we were one of those.
Wow.
And so suddenly some of the professionals started coming to see what we were about. It was the first time we'd had interest. Well, many people arrived thinking, we're an environmental community because Urban Land had published a hard book of the 10 top environmental communities in the country. Well, we were the only one with density. They were all, Braves Island, all these coastal, these great preserved developments. And then we were one of the first, what you would call agri-hoods. Kevin Sachs of the New York Times came and did a story on we put farms right next to housings, and that was unheard of back in 2004 and 5. And so he termed it an agri-hood, and that's kind of stuck. And so this was an agri-hood movement, and we're kind of the leader of that. And so people were expecting the farm. Well, we have the farm, but we have all this stuff. And then because of our density, people identified as new urbanism. Well, new urbanisms were not necessarily preservationists or environmentalists.
Right.
And so people came arriving looking for one of those three things with the expectations. And while it was a piece of us, it certainly wasn't that. And so I was searching, okay, clearly people want a tagline. What's our tagline?
Yes.
Who are we?
Right.
And in the original 2000 charrette, the 2-day charrette with Rocky Mountain Institute, Bill Browning had mentioned biophilic design, that this really made sense. And that was kind of this weird word. I didn't understand it. I had to go look it up. I didn't quite know how to spell it. And it kind of stuck there in my mind. And then I was on a panel, I don't know, this is now, 12, 13 years ago, with Tim Beatley, who is at the University UVA and teaches a whole course on biophilic design and biophilic cities. And as I was sitting through that presentation, I was to follow him, and I thought, oh my God, that describes who we are, which is really, a connection to nature.
Right.
And we're all part of that ecosystem that depends on one another. And that's exactly what Serenbe is. And so even though it's sort of a word that a lot of people don't know and moving forward, it really describes what we are. And so then later we formed the Biophilic Institute, and we really have now a board of really great thought leaders. A lot from academia and some policymakers and from corporate America too. So this is really to advance and familiarize people with what the principles of biophilic design as it applies to the built environment.
That's so wonderful. There's you mentioned 1,400 people right now living on the property. How big is the property today in terms of acreage or miles, square miles?
Well, you have to think, and I always put it in context, because if you read about developers like in California Forward, I think, or Elon
Yes.
Musk, Texas, and so you have one person buying land and then trying to entitle it.
Right.
What we did is we brought 500 landowners together to rezone 40,000 acres, and now we've used Serenbe to demonstrate what that is. Now, we are the first and the only in the last 20 years who have actually broken ground. So this is why it was important we do that. But we stopped traditional development from happening.
Understood.
Now, literally, we're getting developers from around the world who are entitled property here. So you're going to see in the next 5 years a lot change, because all of a sudden people understand what we're doing, and this is now tomorrow's market. I mean, you look at the baby boomers. They're now gravitating to walkable communities.
Right.
Post-pandemic, we understand the connection, the importance of the connection to nature. And you look at all of our young people born in this century, they could care less about having a car. And so they're gravitating to walkable communities.
That's right.
So suddenly now all of your real estate analysts realize this is the model of the future. And so now your big developers are starting to recognize our zoning and coming in, and that will all lead to more recognition for big developers. As this happens, it's all about to change in the next 5 years, and so that's right. So Serenbe today, we own 2,000 of those 40,000 acres.
Okay,
and now we'll save 70% of it. So just think about that, and we have only disturbed less than 300 acres for this walkable pods of communities, and and each pod has a different retail focus. So one focused on the arts, and you'll see throughout them, and it also each of these set the tone for everywhere else. So all of our street lights are commissioned by an artist. Interesting. If I don't know if you have a lot of young people listening, but a lot of young people. One of your influencers is Rob Roush. Well, it's his dad who designed all our streetlights.
No kidding.
And so we've always had these interesting people, and then we formed. We have an institute, and every house sold or resold pays a 1% transfer fee into that institute. So we have all art programming. So we put over $1 million into art programming from that transfer fee, and then that allows them to leverage that for a lot of other funding. So we have this incredible art coming in from all over the world. We have a resident art program, so we have artists living here, 52 weeks a year, and so that's really happened. Then the next community is focused on agriculture, and so that's where the farms are. That's where the farmers market is, the general store. All those things, and each of these communities have their own coffee shop and their own retail and their own restaurants and what have you. And then the next community, and these are all walkable, very
right. And the diversity makes it interesting.
Oh yeah, and then the next, and the architecture kind of changes with it. So the art community, the architecture in the commercial area, houses can be a little bit very. It is like the 1920s and 30s when the art movement was coming through, and then in Grange, the rural, it's kind of that mostly one story from 1900s, kind of that rural look brick, that real little store. But then the 5-story condo building would resemble one of the old cotton storage buildings. So it's like a restored cotton building. And then the health and wellness, the architecture foundation there is from Scandinavia, both contemporary and historic. And there we have the health restaurants and all the docks and the gyms and the Pilates and cold pressed juices and more coffee shops and
all the longevity stuff you'd want to find is right there.
That's right. And now the community we're developing now is called Spella, and it's around a 4-acre Victorian park with a focus on play. So a real connection with health is play that we forget. Is important at every age.
This is amazing. So, and do you have one master fire department and police department for the whole community?
For the entire city.
So the whole city.
So the city, so the 40,000 acres after the zoning, we had so empowered a community to take control of their own destiny that then we filed the state legislature, and now we are our own city of Chat Hills. So all of the zoning, the police, fire, public works, parks. We're working with Trust for Public Land now on the Chattahoochee River runs through the edge of our city, and we're working with them on their Riverlands project. So we'll be able to take a bike along the river right into the middle of Atlanta with the plans that are being set up now. So this is, we are so connected to Metro Atlanta, yet we have this wonderful European. It would be like a lot of the hamlets and villages you see on the edge of London. You get out of London, you're definitely in country, and that's what this is. And you realize how unique it is, because most metro areas, the buildings follow the roads out of town, and there's no break. This is the largest landmass being saved in an urban area, especially near an airport, in the United States, we know, and maybe in the world.
It's incredible. So people come in from around the world to study it now.
Well, and you're going to learn a lot about, it's preserved life out of India. They'll be opening Preserved Life, which is the first wellness retreat for corporate citizens. And it's looking at corporations around the world, because they're 20 minutes from the airport. You have Dunaway Gardens, which they're restoring. They're out of Los Angeles. That moved, these people all now living in this area, moved here and decided to stay. And so now they're restoring this 1920s art center that had been overgrown for 40 years. They have pictures of Walt Disney and his brother there back in the 20s and 30s, and Esther Merwin, and all these great people of that time. So you see the agriculture, health and wellness, arts are sort of in the DNA of the dirt here, and we're just bringing it to life because we're preserving it from traditional graded development. And so this entire landscape, not only as you physically see in the art, in the nature, but there's actually this DNA of stewardship, creativity, that's actually been here for maybe centuries. When we did the archaeological dig, they found a little tool, and they carbon tested at 9,000 years old, and they believe it was agrarian. And so the native people that were here were not roaming. They were really an agrarian established area. And it's an area here in about a 10 square miles that's never had conflict, whether it was the Trail of Tears or the Civil War. And so there's something about this area that's say, and so I see myself as that steward who has come for this period of time.
Yeah.
When it was under threat for development, to actually come up with a way that we could allow development with major preservation. So we're not putting a fence around it, and we're doing just the reverse.
Yeah.
We're creating a place, inviting people in to observe, participate, or make it part of their life.
It's so funny you brought up Walt Disney. As I'm talking with you and as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, Steve is the modern day Walt Disney. This is really, I that's you have such a grand vision, and the joy that it's brought you and to the people who live there. It's incredible. You mentioned the 300 children that have remarkably and have beaten the odds of the statistics who don't have asthma. Talk about what other tangible benefits you could point to that living in Serenbe has created for not only the community and the land, as you said, as great stewards of that property, but also personally for people in terms of all the other nonsense that we've, as you said, we've overzoned and overstressed ourselves with all this overzoning in other parts of America. What are some of the benefits that you've seen your residents enjoy?
So, for instance, while we have the statistics on the kids, there are many of the elders who have moved here because they can breathe here, and they can't breathe in Metro Atlanta. So this is true. We don't allow lawns because we don't allow chemicals, and so you can't have a nice lawn without a chemical. Nobody notices there are no lawns. All of a sudden, it's, what do you mean?
Wow.
It's fresh air coming in. So there's several things that contribute to it. The food we eat, you do not see obesity. People are walking and they're exposed to fresh food. One woman stopped me and she says, I was on diets for 20 years. And I finally gave it up because it was controlling my life. Every time I went out, I was counting calories, figuring out if that diet allowed me to eat whatever was being served. And finally, 10 years ago, I decided I'm just going to be a little heavy. Yeah. And she said, we moved here about a year ago. And she says, last month, I borrowed somebody's scales because my clothes were all getting loose. And she says, I've lost 16 pounds without thinking about it. And she says, I'm now walking to dinner. I'm walking to everything. I'm walking to friends' house. And she says, I'm only exposed to fresh food. If I want fast foods, I have to get in a car and go find it, which is the reverse of where we live. She says, fast food was totally available and easy, and I had to really search for the fresh food. And so we have our farmers, and we're creating an entire ag community. So it's not just the farms at Serenbe, but now within this greater area. So at our farmers market, so we know the person growing our beef, growing our pork, our chickens, making our cheeses, our butter, growing our vegetables. This wasn't unusual back when,
Right.
but unheard of today. And
You're
so
right.
we know that we're all eating fresh food that does not have preservatives in it.
So this radical transparency and interconnectedness that we've totally lost in the general population of this country. And now I know the guy, I know the butcher, I actually know the dairy farmer. These are friends of mine. They're not just commercially available in my community. I actually know these people.
And this is available in most communities today if you can search it out. I mean, it's natural. They're just here. They come to us, or they're either here or they come to us.
Right.
And
it's incredible.
Our farm is not just our farm. Like at all of our crosswalks are blueberry bushes, and there are banks of figs. So we have edible landscaping throughout the community. So all of our kids understand seasonality of food. I mean, these are just simple things that anybody could do.
But again, I don't want, you're a humble man, Steve, and anyone could do it, maybe. But the truth of the matter is, you had the vision and you put this together. Now you're an architect by education and trade, and you're also now an urban planner, really. So how did you come up with the right balance and mix of figuring out? I know how you figured out all the little towns that was from the English countryside, makes total sense. But when it comes down to community design and the impact that has, that it could have, and it does have on all of us in terms of mental health, social cohesion, which has become more important than ever before, and also climate resilience, which we know climate change is in the news every day. How did you come up with how to make this work and find the right balance to make it work from a community design perspective?
So first of all, know that I was a architectural dreamer, and I never became an architect. So
okay.
So I was never that was profession. I jumped over to be a busboy instead.
Okay, I got it. That's fair.
But so number one, you've heard the land plan and the English influence.
Yes.
When I was in Atlanta, I was on many art boards, and I saw the artists struggle, and we always had to raise X money, or this organization was not going to survive. And that's no way for creative people. And you look at great places through civilizations. Every place we visited in Europe, there was either an art patron or a church. Some religious, there was some patron. Well, how could we make that happen today? And so that's when I started searching for a tool and came up with a transfer fee. I'd found a little community that was doing that for preservation, about 0.25%. And I said, well, we'll do 1% to make it as really meaningful. And of course, everybody says, no one will buy at that. We've never had a pushback. And if it's a raw piece of land where you're going to build a house, it's 3%. And then this continues every time it resells. And no matter how many pieces of property you buy here, you're going to pay that 1%.
Right.
So, and I understood from a basic just experience that art is how you can communicate to people through their heart. And we have lost that. and some of the tough conversations we've had here, we've ended up really turning it into art conversations to really be able to talk to people from a different level. Growing up on a farm and knowing the importance of fresh food, putting a farm. I mean, this just, even though nobody was putting it next to housing because there was a feeling that it was smelly, nobody wanted to live next to a stinky farm. Well, organic farms aren't smelly. And so that was natural. And as we look at how dysfunctional in the health crisis, we had to really address the issue of health, especially for our youth and our elders. These are the two bookends that have really not been addressed in a meaningful, respectful way. And so because of my own kids, and because I knew 5 of my great-grandparents, and of course all my grandparents, I really understood what aging naturally meant. In the 1950s, we didn't have these fenced compounds that resemble more like prisons than they do places to prosper. And so I realized health and wellness, it wasn't a lot of things being studied by your health institutions. It was basically how we lived and how we connected to each other and to the basic ingredients that fed our bodies with the food, that fed our souls with the art. And so these were just sitting down about thinking about where we had loved as we traveled, what were the components of those. And once I realized I was going to be a developer for those 2 years, we went back to some of my favorite places to take pictures. And I really discovered a lot of the places in America that I'd kind of thought interesting that were developments. I came out with very few pictures. There wasn't a range. There's such big design review boards, but it's sort of a narrow. But places created over centuries had a lot more mixed architecture, but placement and massing was important. So as I went back and studied the places that I had just intuitively liked, I tried to figure out what it was about them that made them places I wanted to go back to and that had really prospered through time. And so that was just a really intuitive study of this. And then luckily I was able to bring like Phil Tabb, who did his doctorate on the English village system. He totally understood everything I was talking about. We were able to attract architects. We were able to people that were trying to deal with the agricultural movement. Now we're kind of a think tank with national organizations all headquartered here in some way. And so we knew all those people, and we pulled them all close to us. One of the great things about being a hospitality guy, you know who to invite to your table, and if you have the right mix, it's a successful evening, right? And so I've done the same with development. I just know who to invite to the table.
Well, I love it. And for our listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Steve Nygren with us today. He's the founder and CEO of Serenbe. You can find Steve and his wonderful community at SERENBE.com. You don't have to write that down or stop driving your car. We're going to have it in the show notes. Steve, and he's also the author of this wonderful book that we're going to get to talk about in a little while. Start in Your Own Backyard. It's a wonderful book. I've reviewed it already. Steve, you bring up one of the key, it sounds like, trademarks of what your brilliance is and your vision's all about is diversity. Diversity of the pods, of the little communities that you've created that all interrelate with one another, and you can walk from one to the other. But the other thing is, you just mentioned multi-generational living. And, I have friends that have massive careers that they give up in a different country to move back to China to take care of their loving parents. And it seems like that's an art form that we've absolutely walked away from here in this country, where we've created old age homes and other places to put the elderly out of sight and out of mind. Talk a little bit about the diversity and the benefits and the critical values of multi-generational living that you've created at Serenbe.
Well, a lot deals with the physical plant. So we have one street in our health and wellness community where we are hoping to break ground here in the next few months on a 7-acre campus focused on aging in place. It will be unique in the fact that it does not have age restrictions. It's purely a place you would move if you had a health issue. And it has all the trappings that you might find in some of your more institutional compounds that have all these rules and regulations. But instead, we have created a place where independent operators come in. And so it's a village approach located on the street with 20 some other mom and pop practitioners. And it will have a concierge and transportation and food credits. But instead of having the dining rooms within the compounds, you'll have a shuttle that takes you to any of the restaurants in the community. And so it just makes it as normal into age and place as it would. And it's across the street from the school and the pool. And there are shortcuts through the campus for the kids. So the sound of children's laughter brings a smile that you don't normally see.
Everybody's face.
And we see now what's happening with people that maybe do not have grandchildren or they're not living close. Suddenly you'll see them stepping in to be that support system, whether it's reading to kids, whether it's stepping in to help in some ways. And the friendships that jump generations that we lose if we don't have our seniors. And so, man, people that are moving into elderhood have time to listen and talk to these kids and even mentor them. And meanwhile, now, I mean, my 9-year-old grandson does all my electronics and programming for me. He's into that. He intuitively knows things that would take me maybe 20 minutes to figure out, and he just intuitively flips his fingers and knows where to find everything. So there are such benefits for these bookends of our society to know each other and to interact, whether you're related or not related. And you just see it, you feel it here in just the way we have physically set the place up.
I have to ask the question, does your grandson live at Serenbe?
7 grandchildren all live here. I see them all. I have 3 daughters. They have all returned with their northern husbands, and they're all right here on the property. They walk to school. Their friends are here. Their pediatricians here. It's rare that they are in a car seat. So for parents listening who have wrestled with car seats and the hassle, they either walk, bike, take a scooter, or a golf cart to whatever's going on. They're not in cars.
Steve, you've done a lot of things right in life, obviously, and but boy, I'll tell you what, you really hit the jackpot on your vision, because for you to have your 3 daughters and your 7 grandchildren in your same community, that's really, you really did hit the jackpot in life.
And here's what's exciting: people that see it. Yeah. So I have a cousin who's in early dementia. She's a little bit older than I am, and her daughter's now moving her here because this is a place she can feel natural. She had a townhouse part-time here back when we first started. Yeah. I have another cousin whose the son is moving here with his wife and their children for the education and the connection for kids. So not only have my daughters returned, the connections to my broader family are coming. And here's a perfect example: one because of how we treat elders, and the other because of the atmosphere for kids.
So the bookends of life, you put the bookends of life together again, and everything makes sense. It's a total, you've really created a circular community. The whole focus now is moving us from the linear or consumer economies to the circular economy. You've created a circular community. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
And the thing I do not understand is we're in a health crisis.
Yeah.
We're using all of our Earth's resources.
100%.
Why aren't more people asking why? Why are we willing to put up with this, put our heads down, and just keep moving forward? It's, my generation, the baby boom generation, we've lived in a period that it's always worked out. And so I can understand this tendency to shrug, push back, have a drink, and figure it's going to be okay.
Right.
People born in this century have been born into a fragile atmosphere. And they are going to be much more active, and they are asking the questions. And my challenge to the baby boom generation, one of the reasons I wrote the book, is how can we join these young people in addressing some of this? You know, the baby boomers, we were going to address everything with sex, drugs, and rock and rolls in the 60s, and that didn't work out too well.
Right.
And the same generation, sometimes the same people, became the greed generation of the 90s. So this is the generation that has lived the extremes, the only one I know of, the extremes of that pendulum. And I hope in elderhood we can swing back to common stabilization and work with these young people to figure out these things for both our human health and our global health.
Yeah, you're right. The days of, as you point out, sex, drugs, and rock and roll didn't work out too good, and neither did Greed is Good from the movie Wall Street and how the world was set up back then. Hopefully, this is the beginning. What you've created is the beginning of a new, revolution in terms of how to live well. You wrote this fantastic book, Start in Your Own Backyard. Here it is, and there'll be in our show notes, there'll be links to this book. You can buy it on Amazon.com, of course, and any other great bookstore or great book online opportunity. And in it, you propose radical common sense is the right approach to take in terms of rebuilding our communities from the ground up, starting locally. Talk a little bit about what you want readers to come away from when they read this wonderful book.
Well, you know, so many times people feel so overwhelmed with whatever the issues are,
right,
that they don't know where to begin. And many times we expect big government, big corporations, big somebody to fix it for us. It's sort of I don't know any important movement that's ever happened on that level. It's usually been the consumers and the people who care. And, you know, I often point to the fact, you know, I never expected to live in a smoke-free environment. That was not the corporations or any government. That was a group of airline stewardesses decided they did not want to be locked into this tube and convinced the airlines to take the back 5 rows and make them non-smoking. And they were the ones that would be last. I was in the restaurant business when the National Restaurant suggested we take the back 5 tables just to see what happened, because there was, you know, some interest in this. Well, guess what? It's where everyone wanted to go, even though they were the worst seats or the worst tables.
Right.
And so everyone expanded until now it's everything. That was a grassroots movement. And so this is why, if we just start in our own backyard, don't wait for somebody else. What are the issues that you see that's really affecting you, your family, your loved ones, your community, and begin, whether it's just to deal with your own, you know, what your literal backyard is. And I define a backyard as any place you can have influence. Wow. You know, so is that your neighborhood? Do you organize your HOA? Do you run for city council, school district? You know, for a few, it's a state or a global issue, but we need everyone to realize that one person can make a difference. True. And this is why I really wrote the book. I did not have the background, the interest maybe, but the background to do anything that I did. But I had the curiosity and interest to change where we lived. I didn't set out to have an example. I just wanted to save our farm from rural sprawl. And then once I realized the only way to do that is show a demonstration on how development could link to preservation. Then once I realized I was going to be a developer, then I started becoming curious about, well, what might that mean to where I could have a different results than what we've been seeing over the last several decades. And so we've set the book up to be sort of a workbook to where you don't have to read it cover to cover. As you know, you can see what's interests you. We have QR codes that helps take you to programs or other places. So it can really be a workbook, whether it's for book clubs, whether it's for an HOA, whether it's maybe for an academic classroom, studying planning or human health, what have you. So we see it having a life more than just it's not a novel about what we've done. It's a workbook on how we did it and some ideas of how you could do it in your own backyard.
Steve, if I wanted to come visit you in Serenbe, is there a hotel on your property?
Thank you for asking. So the old farmhouse has converted and expanded, and so now that is a country inn.
Wow.
We have many Airbnbs within the community or within the bigger rural landscape.
Yeah.
And some you can go on that, you might be on a little sheep farm, or, there's lots of opportunities to stay with us. Great restaurants, great, arts performances, whether music, art shows. I mean, there's vitality happening all the time. It's great fun.
Steve, you and I get to be part of a generation now that when we were kids, retirement was 62, was mandatory. You get a watch and they put you out to pasture. Where now there's a new generation of leaders, brilliant people, visionaries like you that are. Warren Buffett's 95 now. His partner passed away a month before his 100th birthday. He was working 2 days before his 100th birthday. Charlie Munger. You have, then you have other legends like Larry Ellison and all these other great leaders. You sound like you're having more fun than ever before, and that the best is yet to come. Talk to us and share with our listeners and viewers a little bit about what's yet to come in the next 3 to 5 years. I know you've mentioned it during the show, but talk about some of 1 or 2 or 3 big things that are about to come to fruition that you've been hoping for years. And as you've curated this wonderful community, what's about to come in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think there's greater and greater focus on what we're doing that will hopefully inspire other people from all over. We have created a consulting team under Nygren Placemaking.
Oh.
And we're helping people literally from around the world. I just got back 2 weeks ago from Istanbul, and 3 years ago they brought their team here, and they totally changed their big design. One of the biggest developers in Turkey.
Wow.
This fall, I'm headed to Australia for a 10-day tour with the Urban Land Institute, and they have brought various teams here looking. We're consulting probably in about 20 states. And so there's a new interest in doing these. And the important thing, we go in, and it's not that there's a Serenbe model or formula that we try to impose. Is to understand what both the community and the natural landscape of the community would be like. And so we believe in working with nature rather than imposing a plan on nature, which is a very unique way to go. And so we're trying to share our story and then educate other people. And we're going to see more and more models of this coming out. Plus, we have a lot of things we're hoping to do to both have the hotels and aging in place and more office buildings. We're 25 minutes from the world's busiest, most connected airport. We're a perfect place for a corporate headquarters of any company that truly wants to not only have a certified building, but be in a certified community, and to where everyone is walking and the talk, if you will.
Yeah.
I think all of that is on the verge of happening, and we already see these global people are coming, and as these are announced, these various global things in our greater Chattahoochee Hills, this is going to become more of a global known place in the decades ahead. And so you have peeked behind the curtain now you just have to come see what we're talking about.
I'm coming to see it. I got to just tell you this. It's not only a delight to share this time with you today, and you're the graciousness and generosity of you to share it with us. But one of the guys who came on my show early to sort of validate the show 17 years ago and get us a little name so we could attract better and more guests like you was Ray Anderson. So to have you on and know that you were great friends with Ray, and he was such a delight and so good to me and so inspirational, it just totally makes sense. There's so much goodness going down in Georgia that no one knows about, that we got to all hear about more and more. And this is just another great example. You are a great representation, another great example of how much great work is coming out of Georgia. And Ray's work has been, of course, copied by so many companies and so many corporations. So he was a visionary, inspirational person. You're the same. And I just want to say,
well, he was a great mentor of mine, and his stepson, godfather to my 38-year-old daughter. So you can tell how long I've known Ray. It was before he ever had his spear in the chest, as he says. And so many wonderful times. And if you look at a lot of the early documentaries, that's all on the grounds of Serenbe from Ray.
Wow.
Of course, his 50th and 60th birthdays were all held right here at Serenbe, and Ray Day, celebrating his life's always here. So that's very interesting. That's full
circle. And then and that was like 17 or 16 years ago. I'm going to share this. My wife is traveling on business now, but when she's back, I'm going to share what we've done today and all this. And we're going to look forward to coming down and staying in that wonderful property of yours in the country inn that you've set up there. We're very excited. We're going to come on down and visit hopefully this year. So Steve, first of all, thank you for, like I said earlier, the generosity and graciousness of spending this hour or so with us today. For our listeners and viewers, to find Serenbe, you could go to www.serenbe.com. It will be in the show notes. Also, I encourage all of you to buy this wonderful new book, Starting Your Own Backyard, Transforming Where We Live with Radical Common Sense. Steve Nygren, you're not only a wonderful human being and really fun to interview, but thank you for making the world a better place.
Well, thank you for sharing the story with your backyard, which is all your listeners.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.